Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and I think a Mean Girls the Musical version of the Legally Blonde musical would be really fucking good, actually. That line has no context for anyone who's coming into the show. Okay, so you remember the Mean Girls movie from like last year, the one that freaked me out because the guy who plays the love interest, I forget his name, looks so much like a friend of mine who lives in Atlanta, and I kept thinking it was him every time I drove by that billboard. Okay, you remember that movie?
Yes.
That movie is an adaptation of Mean Girls the musical, which in and of itself is an adaptation of the original Mean Girls movie.
Right.
So they did a musical adaptation of Legally Blonde, and I think that a movie version of that musical adaptation of that movie would cook, actually. None of this makes any fucking sense if you don't know that Bradley pre-records our opening bit to the show where he says his name, but when we do the recording, he does a fake bit to try to throw me off my game. But sometimes it leads me to talk about how good the Legally Blonde musical is and how it has no business being that good.
I mean, I just saw Wicked this week, so
I'm seeing it today.
I was gonna say, for people who are listening to this now, last week I saw it opening day, and so I think you're right. I think actually Legally Blonde the musical, the movie, would be the next musical movie that they should make.
I agree. Well, after they come out with after part two of Wicked,
Wicked, yes.
I think they need to leave Avenue Q alone as far as late 2000s musicals. They need to leave this show alone. They need to leave it where it is on stage. Do not adapt Avenue Q. Do not even think about it.
My friend jokingly said, so when does the Star Wars musical come out? And I said, Rogue One, a Star Wars musical, comes out in...
No, listen, because they've already done Star Wars musicals. There have been fan musicals before.
Sure.
There was one, I think it's Infax Media or something is the name of the website. It's still there. You can go look at it. But it was like a full 2-act musical that I was obsessed with when I was in high school. Because I was right at the intersection. If you know anything about my deep lore, you know that I wrote a musical in high school. And we put it on the last week of my senior year. That was like literally how I ended my high school career. And there was a period in early junior year of high school where I took a course. I think it was the drama as literature course that literally changed my life. But one of the things we had to do was we had to do a project on musicals, and I'd never really paid attention to musicals before then, but I started getting really into them, and I discovered the Star Wars musical, and I basically had it on loop for like 2 years because I loved it so much. I haven't listened to it recently, but there's your deep lore backstory of me. I used to be a musical gay, but not in the way you would think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I
haven't even heard you attempt to sing.
Yeah.
I haven't even heard you attempt to sing. Probably for the best. Probably for the best. Oh, Lord. All right. Well, other than musicals, what are we talking about today, Bradley?
Today we're talking about The Acolyte, Episode 5, Night. In a dense jungle, the Jedi are put to the test when they confront a rising darkness. Charles, what's one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did not?
I really, really loved the fight choreography in this episode, and not just in the sense of how they're moving the lightsabers, but how people are physically positioned on the quote-unquote board, the playing field, where people are and how they're moving around. The show has a very good sense for where everyone is throughout this episode and where they're moving about throughout the entire sequence, because the episode is really one long fight sequence. That's really what this episode is. One thing I did not like about this episode also feels like half an episode. And mind you, it does feel like the more interesting half of the episode, but it very much is half an episode. This is a bunch of callbacks to the last episode. There's a bunch of things that just call back to the last episode because it's clearly one episode concept that was chopped in half. And even the whole scene with May and Osha at the end of the episode feels like it's too long for this episode. It's not that long of a sequence. It's only about 2 minutes, but it feels longer than it is because this episode is the back half of another episode. And I think that that weakens this episode on its own. What about you, Bradley? One thing you liked and one thing you did not.
One thing I liked and one thing I didn't. Okay, so I'm with you on the did not like, but I'm gonna bring it up again. The transitions, the wipes, it was really weird this time around. I think this episode was the one where it bothered me the most because it was just like constant and they were in weird like places for no reason. Like this is the biggest offender of this episode because you could just cut between like we're all in the same place. We don't need to do any kind of cuts. Or we could just do standard cuts. We don't have to do wipes. That was just one kind of little thing I didn't like. That's a half thing. The other half was just straight up. I am very mad. We'll talk about it when we get to it. That two prominent characters in this episode do not continue forward in the story. And I think that actually was a mistake writing wise. I don't think that they should have killed these characters because I'm in the mindset of this. There's more to tell to this overall story. And those two characters would have been great to see them evolve more and keep going. And I don't agree with the concept of they were already at the end of their character arcs because I think they were actually at the beginning, which is really sad to say because the fact that they're dead now and it's more like blatantly dead, like there's not going to be coming back from this one because we actually see the bodies, unfortunately. So I won't go too much into detail because we'll talk about them when we get to them. I did not like that. One thing I did like, this was Manny Jacinto's episode to thrive. This was, and he only gets better after this episode, but I will say his characterization, his acting in this episode as a whole is for 30 minutes of like mostly action. It's insane to me how much screen time that he utilizes and does well like with his character, like so fucking good. The switch between the Chimere character and then the stranger character in one scene we'll talk about is
In
like
one
masterclass.
line.
One
In
line.
one line.
Master
He switches back
acting.
and forth.
Ugh. Okay, so that's the I just him. It basically is the one thing that I like.
Oh boy. And I've literally wrote down a note as you were talking because you brought up a point that I want to bring up. So
Yeah.
you should probably stop talking before my notes get longer and move on to the body of the show
Yeah, we should
so we
probably
can
get started.
analyze roughly 28 minutes. I want the audience to keep this in mind. This episode is roughly 28 minutes long.
Crazy.
So look at the timestamp of this episode and look at the rest of the episode and understand that we pulled all of this out of 28 minutes. Bradley, go.
Section 1. Osha awakens in the jungle alone. She trips over a dead body and witnesses the Master killing several Jedi during a fight. When Yord takes on the Master, he wounds him by slicing at his leg. Osha, trying to help, shoots a stun bolt at the Master, but it fails to affect him. Meanwhile, inside Kanaka's hut, May retrieves his lightsaber. The Master then pursues Osha. He hurls his lightsaber at her, but Sol intervenes and deflects his attack. Yord arrives, and Sol orders Osha to evacuate with Yord to the ship.
So the bit where Osha like walks out and sees the after effects of the like force explosion from the end of the last episode, it's giving very Crate. It's giving,
yeah.
We weren't allowed to do a massive blood stain, so we're getting away with it by having the dirt be vaguely blood colored.
Yeah, it's like red colored dirt. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Because that was the whole thing with Crate in The Last Jedi, is that there were certain like rules that they had to follow. And so Rian Johnson wanted to like have a visual of war being very bloody. And so he made it so that Crate had this red crimson mineral under, and it would gradually get revealed as the battle went on. And this is giving very that.
I like that. And I also, it's funny, I don't know why this reminded me of this, but it looks like Georgia Clay. Like when
It does look like Georgia Clay. It's because you and I are both Georgians.
Yeah, it's just something about it. I was like, oh, made in Georgia. I was like, they filmed this in Georgia. I'm just kidding. They obviously did not, but I just thought it was so funny.
I don't know
what
if no, they filmed it in the UK, I think.
Yeah, they did. But I just thought it'd be so funny if like they just like went into like the forest somewhere in like Georgia and filmed this scene. I just thought that'd be really funny.
Yeah, this appears to have been filmed very much on sound stages based on the way the set is designed. and also the way that they continuously fuck it up as the sequence goes on.
I do want to give them a shout out though, like because somehow this was all filmed on a soundstage, but I never felt like we were on the same stage at any point in time. Like clearly the jungle is like a jungle. Like I feel like we
Yeah,
were always in a different place. We were never in the same part of the jungle twice. Like it was always like all these different places. Like it was they got lost in a jungle. Like I genuinely felt like that was where they were.
they also used the space they built so well that we talked about in episode 2 how they built this sort of city square set with the Jedi Temple and then Kamir's apothecary shop across the street from it, and they use the entire set. They use it really well. Like, they use the temple, they use the square, they use the apothecary shop, and it's clearly all one set. And here, the area around Kelnaka's hut, not to get into it, but it's used in multiple interesting ways throughout this episode, particularly when two characters are fighting in the hut, which I thought was a great use of the space. I also love how when Osha's standing in this, it looks like she's standing in the palm of a hand.
Yeah. It's like he put his hand down and it spread out. The force literally spread out in lines, like to go
Yep.
towards each individual Jedi, basically. Like
They
it
look
just
like
so
little
cool.
fingers, and
Yeah.
Osha's standing in the middle of it. It's so fucking creepy.
Love it.
Anyway, RIP to not Plo Koon.
Oh yeah.
If you were confused at the end of the last episode whether or not this
This is
Keldor
Plo Koon.
Jedi was Plo Koon, she is not, and she is dead.
And I think she's the first to die.
She's the second.
Second?
Osha like gets
Oh,
back
well,
into
oh
the
yeah, that's right.
clearing
The guy is down
and
the
sees
ground.
a fucking dead guy
Yeah.
on the ground, which is
She
immediately
trips
like
over him,
Jesus
by the way.
Yup. Yep.
She trips
Yep.
over his body. And I'm like,
So
oh,
Darth Teeth has already killed a handful of people, already killed at least one person before
one
Osha
person.
even wakes up.
that's crazy.
Kills a second one, and then is fighting these guys. And wouldn't you know it, Bradley, the blade hits his helmet and shorts out.
Yeah. So I guess you can explain why, because
Oh
I didn't
boy,
know
can
what
I
this
explain it?
was.
Hey, Bradley, do you
Yes.
want to take a journey through Star Wars canon with me and talk about cortosis?
Which level of canon are we taking a journey? I'm just kidding.
A lot of it. We're going to start in 1998,
Okay.
right? We're going to start while I was still living in Georgia the first time. Old. I hate that 1998 is old. But in 1998, Michael Stackpole publishes the novel I, Jedi, which first establishes the idea of cortosis, which is broadly a lightsaber-resistant metal. Now, most people, including myself, might be more familiar with cortosis being in the Knights of the Old Republic video game. There is armor and there are weapons made out of cortosis. And the gameplay reason for that is so that characters can fight people that have lightsabers without themselves wielding lightsabers.
Got it.
So you can have, Zalbar or somebody holding this blade that is this cortosis vibro blade, and he can go toe to toe with a Sith without needing a lightsaber to be able to do this. And the explanation is, well, it's resistant to lightsaber energy or whatever. Now, the thing about Legends is that it's not very consistent
Sure.
at points, which is a thing that canon also has to deal with. But there were differences even between I, Jedi and Knights of the Old Republic stuff with what cortosis did, how it behaved. So sometimes it would shut down the lightsabers when it came into contact with them. Sometimes it just blocked them. So broadly, it's energy resistance. The Acolyte is leaning towards it disables the lightsabers side
Right.
of things. Now, it is also not the first time we have seen cortosis in canon, because cortosis first appeared in one of the very first canon books, A New Dawn. And it has previously appeared mainly in the comics, in the Dr. Aphra comics. However, it has also appeared in the Thrawn Alliance's novel, the buddy cop novel with Darth Vader and Grand Admiral Thrawn. So cortosis is a big part of Star Wars expanded canon. This is the first time we are seeing it on screen. It has never made an on-screen appearance before. previous iterations of lightsaber resistant metal tend to use Beskar.
Right. That's all we know from Mandalorian, I guess. This is
Yes. So when the Magistrate and Ahsoka are fighting in the Jedi episode of Mandalorian season 2, obviously we see that Beskar it just treats lightsabers like anything else.
right.
Like it blocks them normally. So this is our first appearance of Cortosis, and the Stranger's helmet is made out of the stuff.
Nice. And he also has wrist gauntlet things, right?
He also has wrist gauntlet things that are also made out of Cortosis.
Got it.
So he clearly doesn't have a lot of Cortosis because he only has enough to make a helmet and a
Right. Wristbands or something.
wrist brace.
Wrist bracelets, yeah. Eristor friendship bracelets.
Yes. The Stranger's Erator, oh my God, the Stranger's Sith Erator friendship bracelet.
Sith eras, yes. I love
Oh
it.
my God, it is Sith eras, Lord.
I also want to talk about how brutally he unalives these people because there are some really good kills in
Bradley,
this.
this is not the TikTok click. You can just say he fucking brutally murders the shit out of everyone in the room.
So good.
It's so
I
good.
mean,
The minute he stabbed one of them,
yes.
force pulled another one onto the lightsaber, and then
Yes.
decapitated them.
Ugh.
I sat up like the first time I watched this. I like sat up. I was like, oh, this show is cooking.
It's cinematic art, like is what it is.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like the only thing where they've kind of been able to get away with this previously to this point in visual media has kind of been the Clone Wars. And even that, they were hampered by what Cartoon Network was going to allow them to do.
Right.
Where Savage Opress is decapitating those Black Sun guys and just like murdering people in these horribly violent ways. Even the Darth Vader hallway scene is scary because of how it's shot. He's not like ripping guys apart.
Right.
Like he's like tossing people on the ceiling and slashing them with the lightsaber. I don't know if I would call that particularly brutal more than it is just a scary sequence. Here, no, the Stranger is viscerally, visibly wounding people.
Right.
In like horrific ways. And this is not even the most horrific way he's going to kill somebody in this episode. On screen with your eyeballs that you have to watch.
Yeah, this is I thought they were bad. Like now, I feel like it does escalate a little bit. I don't I say this lightly. It was cool. I mean, I don't condone murder, but if you're gonna do it in a stylistic way, this is a very cool looking way to do it, honestly. Like,
I mean,
in a fantasy world.
yes, he's a murderer.
Yeah.
He's very hot.
The exposed
he's
arms.
really. We'll get to those.
Yeah,
we'll get to those. They're barely exposed right now. They're still kind of covered up by the cloak, but we'll get to those. No, and I know that a lot of people, when they watched this episode for the first time, even detractors of this show, kind of sat up and went, whoa. Just because the fight choreography in this, I think it's the perfect blend of the prequels kind of flashy style with what a lot of supplemental media has done, which is, and also the sequels has kind of done, which is try to have a more realistic lightsaber combat where you can sort of feel every hit. Like I think a lot about the Force Awakens duel between Rey and Kylo Ren, where it's very visceral. It's very like you can feel every hit between them. It's not like flashy and they're not like jumping over each other. Sorry to the Star Wars The Old Republic cinematics. You are cool to look at. You have no substance. Like, you are clearly video game characters jumping around on the screen. But this one felt like the perfect blend of those two things, which I really liked. Speaking of the Stranger and just talking about him generally, when he turns up, so like he throws the lightsaber and Soul deflects it, and then there's a moment where he's just standing there. The person inside the mask is a fucking flawless actor because every move the Stranger makes is with purpose. And it's so bitchy.
I really don't have anything to say. I mean, it's so good. Like, it's so subtle, but it's so good. And there's something about the design of the mask as well that is just like, whoever designed this mask, I have to give you the ultimate props because it it's literally a combination of horror and like Cheshire Cat, but also like what's that Slender Man or whatever. Like it's like this really creepy like combination of horror and just like I don't know how they did it. It's I've never seen anything this creepy in Star Wars before.
And also the way that the actor inside the helmet is moving, like the way that he tilts his head to the
Right.
side when he's
Very
regarding
slowly,
Soul.
always, yeah.
It's very slowly and it's one fluid movement, which is an incredible acting choice. You know, we talk about how acting is all choices. Acting is just the act of making 1,000 different choices on stage or screen. This is an incredible choice to play this head tilt this way where he's like regarding Soul. We also know that the stranger loves to get inside people's heads. We will see that later this episode.
Also, we kind of skipped over it for a second, but OSHA shoots him with the gun, and he doesn't react really, or like he gets hit with the stun gun, which is weird that she would choose stun over. Or does the gun only have stun?
I think the gun only stuns.
Okay, so if the gun only has stun,
If it had the capacity to have a kill setting, I have a feeling OSHA would have turned it on.
Okay.
The second she watched him decapitate 2 people with one swing. We are now at the do not stun this motherfucker phase of the conversation. Just shoot him. Shoot him if you have the capacity to do it.
My question is, why doesn't this affect him?
I think it is the helmet.
Okay, so the helmet is kind of protecting him from the
Yes,
whatever the stun, I guess you call it.
I believe it is the helmet.
Because I don't think we've ever seen anybody like truly resist it, or like they have resisted it, but then eventually they get taken down after a couple shots.
Yeah, you have to shoot him a couple of times. He just sort of shrugs it off like it's nothing.
To be fair, she only shot him once, so
she did only shoot him once.
So that's that's kind of on her. But yeah, okay, I like the okay, the helmet protects him. The only other thing I have in this scene is just when he throws the lightsaber and it cuts the trees down and it one after the other slowly falls. It gave me that it goes back to the first Resident Evil movie where the guy gets cut by the lasers, and it's so cheesy, but he gets cut by the lasers and then slowly his face
I haven't
falls
thought
apart.
about that. I haven't thought about that film franchise in so long.
I try not to because it's terrible, but that particular scene reminded me of that because the trees like all get sliced in half, but then they like slowly just fall over, and it's so cool in sequential order how they do it.
This show's deliberate use of slowness is incredible. And it knows particularly where the stranger is concerned, and we'll talk about it even more in the next episode, where something needs to be slow and deliberate. And here it's to be creepy. It's to be weird. You know what else is creepy and weird, Bradley? The music in this show, which absolutely fucking rules in this episode.
Do you know who the composer is? I don't know who it is.
I can look it up really fast. This is
Just
the thing Charles didn't
know?
research.
Because I feel like they're going to be the same for all the episodes, so you might as well shout them out now.
Oh, we have talked about him before on a previous episode. Michael Abels.
Oh.
We talked about him before. Composer for basically all the Jordan Peele movies.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we have talked about him before. So shout out to him again for being really good at this score. Because it's kind of evoking Duel of the Fates, but it's not Duel of the Fates.
Section 2. Master Soul begins his fight with the other master. Okay. I keep changing. I interchanged master and stranger, like, because he's master up until he says, I don't have a name, and then I change it to stranger. Okay. So if that gets confusing, I'm just going to say soul. So I'm going to call him master up until that point, but then I'm going to go to
listeners. There you go. There's your explanation for why Bradley does the things he does.
There you go. Soul begins his fight with the master. Soul senses a familiar connection with him, but the master refuses to reveal his identity. The master escapes the fight. In the jungle, Osha questions Yord about their enemy. He admits the master is unpredictable and seems to get in your head, reminding Osha of her late mother's abilities. Elsewhere, May leaves the hut, but is ambushed by Jeki. They fight, with Jeki arresting May for the murders of the Jedi. May escapes the fight and moves into the jungle. Jeki is able to retrieve Kelnaka's lightsaber, but is interrupted by the Master. Jeki briefly duels him, but he overpowers her and destroys one of her lightsabers. May escapes into the jungle and the Master pursues her.
There's a line where Soul says, "What master hides his face from his pupil?" To which the stranger replies, "You tell me." Girl, he's got this shit figured out.
That was so cold.
He was either there, he figured it out from what May said, or he's inside Soul's head and he knows.
Yeah, this is the part where I was a little they're a little loose with like how the stranger knows the things that he knows because we never find out really.
No, we
But
never really get an explanation.
I like the like so because Yord had just previously said the stranger is able to get in your head. The stranger has this ability when wearing the helmet to use some kind of not Jedi mind trick, but like telepathy of some kind that he can like kind of like get in your thoughts a little bit and like see what you're thinking. So I feel like he knows a little bit about what Soul is trying to say, but like because I don't know. There's something where he's reading Soul in a
We will
way.
find out more details about the helmet in the next episode and how it amplifies one's connection with the Force.
Got it.
Yes, because there's an interesting facet to the helmet in these scenes, but we can't talk about it. Yord is right, and they need to leave.
And this pissed me off so much. This episode was I get it. Osha's like my sister. Oh, I gotta go back and help and blah 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 blah. I'm a good person. Whatever. I no Yord, get her out of here and leave. Go to the ship and go get more help. Go tell
Yeah, and it's
somebody.
it's not even like that he agrees. It's more like he gets worn down because in this first sequence, she just broadly says he's gonna kill everybody.
Right.
In the like he's gonna kill the entire Jedi strike team, and Yorda's like, okay, then we have to fucking go.
Right. We need to go tell somebody. Like
To which he is correct. Also, we get this interesting sequence where Yord is talking about fighting the stranger, where he talks about how he follows no rules of combat. He gets in gets in her head, or he gets in May's head, but he gets in your head.
right.
Yord is scared.
As he
Yord
should
is
be.
scared of the stranger. Fighting this guy genuinely scared the shit out of Yord. A guy who is very by the book and professional at all times. He is afraid to fight the stranger again.
It is worth noting though, he is injured. So he is
Yes,
not
he is
at
also
the
injured.
he's not at the top of his game right now. So and Soul did give him a direct order, and Soul is the master. He is the highest ranking Jedi in the field right now. So the master Soul gave you an order, get the civilian back to the ship. You're also injured and you're kind of afraid of this dude anyway. So your immediate instinct would make sense, would be like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking get back to the ship because I want to survive. I need to get out of here. Like,
Well, he also has a mission, and now the mission parameters have changed.
right.
As Vernestra points out correctly in episode 4, mission parameters can change. And holy shit, there is this guy who just murdered a fuckload of Jedi, has a red lightsaber, seems to have the capacity to do weird force shit that we can't even comprehend, and is proceeding to personally and violently, single handedly kill an entire Jedi strike team, including at least one master. The parameters of the mission have changed severely. But we'll come back to that as this gradually evolves. I do want to jump to the conversation between Soul and the stranger, particularly when Soul identifies the lightsaber as a Jedi weapon,
Okay.
which is a really interesting prequels era thing. And it comes up in The Phantom Menace that by this point, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Everybody thinks of the lightsaber as a Jedi weapon because no other Force order carries lightsabers. And the people we see that are wielding lightsabers tend to be one-offs, like fallen Jedi.
Right.
Nobody carries a lightsaber that is not or previously was not a Jedi. And so people just sort of assume the lightsaber is the Jedi weapon. Because we also see in the High Republic Phase 2, there's lots of different Force orders. None of them use lightsabers except the Jedi. The Jedi is a very specific philosophical weapon for the Jedi Knights. And I thought that was really interesting that Soul identifies it as a Jedi weapon. Anyway, my last note for this sequence is, Jackie, now is not the time for the Miranda rights.
When I do love them fighting though, because I love the difference between like May and Osha and Jackie's like attitude towards both of them. Because like obviously May is a serial killer essentially at this point. So
Yes, she
she's
is a
like
Jedi serial killer. She has
right.
killed
So it makes sense for
two
Jackie to
separate
be
Jedi.
like, right. Jackie's like,
Actually,
nah, I'm gonna fight you
now you've got me thinking, what is the definition
of serial.
of a serial killer?
I think it's just repeated pattern or something, right?
It is a repeated pattern. Yes, it is a
Yeah.
repeated pattern.
And technically she's killed two Jedi. So this would be the pattern. Two is a pattern, no?
Oh no, she's not. To the Jedi, she is.
Right.
To the Jedi, she is.
Well, technically, she's
But
only killed one person.
Wikipedia defines a serial killer as someone, and they quote a couple of different sources. But you have to kill 3 or more people.
Okay.
Now the Jedi think that May has killed three
so.
people,
Right.
which would qualify her as a serial killer. However, she has actually only killed one,
yes,
and it was Indara.
Right.
She did not kill Torben, and she did not kill Kelnaka. So technically, she's only killed one person. Now, the stranger also doesn't count because it goes on to explain that the definition continues to be, quote, with the killings taking place over a significant period of time in separate events, end quote.
Yeah, because he just kills them all at one time. It's not like they were over the course of a month.
He is killing people.
Yeah,
he is killing people all in this moment. So he does not count.
Interesting. I love how we turned into a murder podcast. We're just
like,
let's...
Look, the third Beach House book is not out yet, but I have some strong opinions about true crime podcasters and how I think they kind of suck.
Yeah.
As a group, they are broadly terrible. So I'm trying to avoid turning into that. However, we just went down a whole rabbit hole of, are either of these people serial killers?
Right.
And the answer is no. Also, arguably, I don't think we have one in Star Wars, because everyone else who murders a bunch of people does so in the context of a war.
Right.
Which is different, a different motivation. And Maul's doing it under orders. Again, in an ideological war. So May is, I think, the only person who comes close, because she just fucking hates these people and wants them to die.
And she would have if she had the opportunity to do them all. So technically, she almost became one. She just didn't have the opportunities, or they were taken away from her in some capacity. Interesting. The only other thing I have is Jackie able to hold her own against the master a little bit is just nice to see. I love that she's capable, that even though she's just a Padawan, she's still very skilled in her fight, her brief fight before he runs away.
This man rolls up to the scene and kind of drops his advantage slightly in order to poke and prod May for fucking up. When he's like, you could learn something from this Padawan. She's loyal. Motherfucker. I love him. I love how bitchy he is. He seems less mad that May betrayed anybody and more mad that May betrayed him personally, and then got all smug about it in the last episode. See, it would have been great if we could have watched these 2 episodes together, because then this would have made much more sense of why he's so pissed off at her specifically. It's because she tied him to a tree and then smugly lectured him about abandoning him.
So he's got to throw right back at her.
Yeah, he's gonna give back the energy she gave him. Speaking of energies, the little musical cue when Jackie's second lightsaber ignites, perfect. Chef's kiss, no notes, perfect.
So good. And I love how it's a slow ignition too. So when it's shorted out, it's all fucked up, but then it just slowly turns back on. It's cinema.
It's cinema. It's peak fucking cinema.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, when he gets rid of one of her lightsabers before he disappears, is that Kelnaka's lightsaber he destroys, not her personal?
That is Kelnaka's lightsabers that he slices. He slices it in half, and we get the really cool visual shot, which I think was from either one of the trailers or something with the promotion, where it's the sliced in half lightsaber
in the ground or something.
In the ground, but it's also kind of establishing where the kyber crystal is, that we kind of see the inner workings of the lightsaber.
Okay.
That's a surprise tool that will help us later to know that crystal is in there. But yes, it's Kelnaka's that he does slice in half.
Section 3. Osha and Yord navigate the jungle and come across the area with the Umbra Moths. To avoid provoking them, Osha makes Yord turn off his lightsaber. Elsewhere, the Master accuses May of betrayal. Before striking her, he is ambushed by Sol and Jeki, who duel him. May flees, but he pursues her, fending off the Jedi as he chases her through the jungle. Osha senses the group in trouble and insists on returning despite Yord's protests. Osha sees Elmer Moss circling in the trees above, and she turns on her light and runs back towards the fight. Meanwhile, Sol and Jeki fight the Master in a lightsaber duel. During the fight, Jeki manages to unmask the Master, but is fatally wounded as he ignites a second red lightsaber and stabs her 3 times. In her final moments, she locks eyes with the Master, revealing Chimere.
I like how you had to break this scene in half because you knew there was going to be just a fuckload of notes.
I know.
Yeah, no, he gets into May's head. We actually get to see this.
Yeah, we flash his face,
force projecting his voice into her head, which is absolutely crazy.
It's very subtle, but they do it really. I mean, they do it really quickly, but it was really creepy too because you see the flash of his mask or whatever in her mind, I guess, and so she's like, "Ugh."
Yes, and it's the visual representation of what Yord was talking about. Is that Darth Teeth can get into your head,
right?
He can get into your head and fuck with it, which is a great visual representation. Once Sol and Jeki join the fight. And like they're trying to fight the Master. He's trying to kill May. I love May trying to run away and the duel like happening around her and following her as she runs. She keeps trying to
get
run.
Out. She's like, please leave me alone.
The stranger is trying to kill her, and the other two are trying to stop him.
It's funny that he is kind of ignoring them essentially in this fight. Like, I mean, yes, he's defending himself when they attack him, but like he's going after May. He doesn't give a shit about the 2 Jedi, which is funny.
No, and they're almost kind of annoyances to him.
They're just being annoying. Get out of here.
Yep. We're back to Osha and Yord, and then what finally convinces Osha to like break from Yord and turn around is the sister, which I'm curious in this moment how much of this is the Force trying to guide Osha back and how much of it is maybe the stranger in her head trying to get her back.
Because I think she says a line or two or something about how like she feels May calling out to her or like she feels her some way. So I feel like I can't tell if it's like May subconsciously like reaching out with the Force being like, Osha, help me kind of thing. Or if it's like Osha projecting being like, well, May's in trouble. I need to help her kind of thing. I feel it. I'm feeling these feelings in the Force now. But I could also see it being the stranger being like, no, come back. Like she needs your help. Like
come back to me.
Yeah.
But my note says, yes, he's going to kill them all, and you should leave and go report that. This is the moment I think that the show lost any chance of having a good ending. And I say this in the sense of having a semi-happy ending was going to be this. I think the ending's good, but we'll get there when we get there. This is the moment when she turns around. Because up to this point, they could have left the situation at any point.
Yep.
This is the last time, and Osha, of course, doesn't know this. This is the last time that she has to lead and prioritize what the Jedi need over what her sister needs. And it's interesting what she'll talk about later in the episode in her conversation with May, that in this moment, Osha chooses to go back for May, despite still believing that May killed her family, despite knowing how dangerous Darth Teeth is. She still chooses to go back and try to save May. Interesting. Anyway, the fight choreography is sick as fuck. Just generally, broadly, throughout the whole episode, it's sick as fuck. I love when 2 opponents are fighting 1 opponent. And also, it's great because normally when we see this, like Darth Maul or Asajj Ventress, normally or even Darth Sidious in the Clone Wars, the other person will have 2 lightsabers. Count Dooku is one of the only people that we've really seen up to this point who can take on 2 Jedi at the same time with 1 lightsaber blade.
Yes.
So I do think that it's neat to see Darth Teeth here holding off both Jeki and Sol, who, mind you, is a Jedi Master. And Jeki, we have also seen multiple times throughout these early episodes, is very competent with a lightsaber. And he is holding them off with 1 blade while trying to prioritize killing May. It's so good. It's fucking great. But all of Jeki's lightsaber training, unfortunately, does not save her from Darth Teeth fucking cheating at this fight. Because Yord literally says he does not follow the rules of combat. His lightsaber splits in half.
Who would have thought?
He can turn it into a second blade if he feels like it.
First of all, really cool concept also. Like that there's a blade within the blade, essentially. Like I love it. I actually do like it. It's like a little
It's
Shoto blade
so
or whatever.
sneaky. Yeah, it's the little Shoto blade.
Oh,
It's fucking sneaky.
I hate it for Jackie. I love it for the character design.
Well, he never busted it out at any point before this.
Right, and they had no idea.
Anytime,
Yeah,
anytime he was, because that seems to imply he never thought he was in any danger.
right. He didn't need it.
Up to this point, he didn't need it because he had the helmet. The second his helmet comes off, which is what Jackie does to him, now we need to bring the second blade out because one,
Like,
he's
oh
pissed.
shit.
Two, he's lost his advantage. So now he has to use another trick. This is the thing about the Sith. They're always going to have another trick up their sleeve.
So rest in peace,
Rest in peace, Jackie.
Jackie.
This was a shock when
This
it
was
happened.
this was actually like take my breath away moment in the episode.
This was a genuine. I still watch this episode and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is
Sick. This is sick, Leslie.
this is sickly good writing. To be like, yes, you brought the Padawan because we're so used to the master being the one to die.
Yeah.
Because that's what Star Wars has established in The Phantom Menace, the most famous case of Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And here, Obi-Wan Kenobi, they don't have Obi-Wan Kenobi plot armor. They don't
Right.
have a movie 30 years down the line that established he's still alive. And obviously, when you bring the 19-year-old, 18, 19-year-old, however old Jackie's supposed to be, into this fight, yeah, no, she's going to get fucking murdered. She might be good, but the Sith are not going to play by the rules. She's really good at drills. She's really good with the Boken Saber. None of that fucking matters when you're fighting an enemy that does not give a fuck about the rules that you have arbitrarily decided. This is the whole theme with the stranger. This is the whole thing of his conversations he will have in the back half of this episode. Your rules do not matter when your opponent does not give a fuck about them and will not follow them. Star Wars, however, not political. Not in the slightest. I'm sure the fact that one of the central themes here is it is really hard to fight an opponent who learns to operate within your system while having an utterly flagrant disregard for the arbitrary rules that you set on yourself means nothing in the broad context. I'm sure that came out of nowhere.
And I want there to be like, I know this is impossible because literally he stabs her 3 times in the chest and then like we see
Oh,
her
she's
body,
dead.
and then we see her lying on the ground and then we literally see her later in the episode, just the body's just there in the background. I know they can't. However, I want there to be just some I mean, come on. Darth Maul got cut in half. Let's just next level this for no reason whatsoever. Some random night sister or witch comes along the body and sees it and resurrects her or some bullshit.
So here's what's really funny. One of the main criticisms of the Disney era of Star Wars is that people keep getting stabbed in the chest and coming back. And I just find it really funny how in this show they make sure to stab her multiple times in the chest, just so you know she's not walking this one off.
But like doesn't matter if she has 3 hearts. We got all 3 of them. Like
we got all 3 of them. She's done.
Because what is it? I think it's the this is the Grand Inquisitor has 2 hearts or something like that. Or what is it that his
it's like 2 stomachs
species,
or something.
Yeah, something like that. So like him getting stabbed in the stomach isn't like fatal, right? So that's like
that's how they sort of explain it in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
So I love that. Like my explanation for her is she has like 5 hearts. Like
she has 5 hearts, obviously.
She didn't get the other one. Like
good grief.
But yeah,
you can live in delusion.
I'm going to, as long as I shall live. Jackie Lawn lives forever in my brain.
And then my last note for the sequence is hi Manny.
Oh,
and then if you are not Bradley and do not have access to the video version of this call, I kind of like licked my bottom lip a little. Thinking about this shot of him looking all sweaty and grimy, and we need to move on. We need to move on to the next sequence.
Section 4. Soul confronts Chimere. Chimere uses the Force to pull May close, holding her hostage. He identifies himself as possibly a Sith with no name, seeking freedom and power beyond the Jedi's rules, vowing to kill those who have seen his face. Yord and Osha ambush the stranger, but during the fight, Yord is killed. May runs away during the chaos, but Osha stuns her. Soul attacks the stranger and gains the upper hand and attempts to kill him, but Osha interrupts. She motions for Soul to notice the Umber Moth circling ahead, and Soul deactivates his light lightsaber, asserting that the Jedi principle of not attacking the unarmed. The stranger mocks this restraint, and as tensions rise, Osha attaches Pip to the stranger's back, illuminated and attracting the Umbermoss. They attack the stranger, and he is carried away. Left alone with Soul, Osha demands the truth about his past and why she can't trust him. Soul promises to explain, but is stunned by May before he can speak.
I have so many notes on this section.
I
Okay.
know, I had to truncate this all in one thing, but
You
it
had
was
to just
too
put it
much.
all in one because you knew it was gonna be literally so many notes in this section. The stranger saying in response to Soul saying Jackie's name, was that its name?
Was that its name?
Its name?
Oh
Its name.
my god.
It.
He's brutal, dude.
They are not playing about this guy. Like
Oh,
they
he's so
want
fucked
you
up.
they want you to be 100% clear going into the episode 6 and episode 8. Just so we're clear, this guy sucks because he is immediately anti-alien. With one of the first things he says with the mouth off, with the mask off, is just referring to the alien as an it. What the fuck? And then Soul points out that Jackie was just a child, which true,
But
but the stranger does correctly point out, you brought her here.
it's your fault.
This single moment being a riff on one of the most criticized parts of the Clone Wars era Jedi, where they are being forced to deputize child members of their order into soldiers. Incredible critique on this, because if we look at the Jedi like pre the Clone Wars, yes, you would become a Padawan when you're around, in Legends it was around 13, that it was 13 actually, that you would have to have been selected to be a Padawan by the age of 13. Canon's a little more nebulous. You're a little bit older when you get picked to be a Padawan. But pre the Clone Wars, this is a galaxy without war necessarily. And so while you are bringing Padawans into dangerous spaces, typically if you are a good master, the Padawan is not the one engaging in a lot of the danger. And I know that part of why Star Wars has to do this is because it is a show for kids. Kids like to see other kids be the heroes of their own adventure. By necessity, this does mean that kids or younger people are going to wind up being protagonists of a lot of stories. Look at Ahsoka Tano or Ezra Bridger. However, during the Clone Wars, the Jedi have to deputize, and this is the same as both canon and Legends, they are deputizing a lot of preteens and teenagers. Well, not necessarily preteens, because they're generally Padawans at 13, but teenagers into child soldiers, literally given the rank of commander and military authority, which is an immensely fucked up part of how the Jedi are forced to operate under wartime that they did not operate under peace. So here we're already seeing where that's going to be a problem. Jekki is older than your average Padawan as presented to us in like the Clone Wars. She is technically around 18 or 19. So she's a little bit older, but she is still very young. And she was brought into this situation, and that's kind of a problem that she was even in this situation in the first place. So Kamir throwing that back in Soul's face and being like, actually, you're an awful person for bringing her here. He's kind of not wrong.
I know.
This is what Chimera will do. Throughout the entirety of the rest of the show, he will say things that are technically correct, but because of who is saying them, have a sinister underpinning to them. Also, we get that lovely little moment where he, for one line, shifts into Chimera's voice.
This was it. This was that.
And you
moment.
can tell Manny just sent, where was your Emmy for this show?
I mean,
where was
crazy.
it? Because you deserved it for this part.
Literally this one line.
Literally this one line.
The
You can
switch
tell.
back and forth is crazy.
You can tell that for the first 4 episodes, and this is all the stuff we didn't talk about.
This is I know. That's why I wanted to talk about
the
this
moments
part.
where it's Darth Teeth / the Stranger pretending to be the Chimera persona. It's a twist we all kind of saw coming. But it's also a good twist in the sense of that it makes you reevaluate every interaction you've had with this character before this point. A good twist, I will say this as a writer, a good twist isn't necessarily something that comes as a shock. If you lay your clues correctly, there will be audience members who will correctly guess the twist. A good twist makes you rewatch the thing and reevaluate a large aspect of the plot before that moment. So, for example, the Darth Vader twist in Empire Strikes Back, making you reevaluate everything that Vader has done specifically in that movie and his weird obsession with Luke. That's a good twist. The Leia twist in Return of the Jedi, not a good twist, because it does make you reevaluate everything that happened in the original trilogy, but from a slightly different lens.
I choose to ignore that lens.
I choose to pretend that that one scene from Empire Strikes Back didn't happen. Arms.
Yes, arms.
That's my next note.
Oh.
Arms. There are two separate points we are going to talk about the arms in this episode. Because this is the first time we see them in full, is when he tosses the cloak off and he summons May to grab her by the throat, and he has exposed Manny Jacinto's well-toned, well-trained, entirely exposed all the way up to his exposed shoulders and lats, dirty, grimy, sweaty arms.
Loves it.
While he is doing a horrific thing, which is holding his former student by the throat, I'm a little conflicted about this scene.
Yeah, it's like...
I'm a little conflicted about this moment when I watch it.
On
but
the one
Manny,
hand, you're like, but on the other hand, you're like,
Manny, congratulations on being that hot. And also being that talented, and from what I understand, I've never met him, being that nice. I'm free most weeknights and most weekends. I can arrange my schedule to make that work. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, he's hot as fuck in this episode. Dear God.
Okay, I do want to talk about the two things that he says. So the one thing that he says, we'll talk about in a second, is he's like, you might call me a Sith. We'll talk about that in a second. First, I want to talk about this point that I brought up a couple episodes ago, which was that is Chimere his real name? And that's what I wanted to bring up. Chimere, it appears, is a persona. That is not his real name. That is not even remotely what he would call himself in real life. Because he refers to himself as he has no name. He is the stranger. That's why I'm going to refer to him now as the stranger moving forward, instead of calling him Chimere. But to everybody else, he's Chimere. But that was just a fake persona that he came up with, and then that's just not even a real person. So now we're like, wait, who the fuck is this guy? Because beforehand, I was trying to be like, is that his name? Is that not his name? Like, did he just pull that from something? Or I think he just made it up. Well, we don't know because we're not getting a season 2, but
I think that he has to have made it up just because there's a piece of information that is revealed, that is hinted at in episode 6 and revealed in episode 8, which would mean that if he used his real name when talking to the Jedi, let's just say that would be a liability.
Right. So
if he used his real name in front of Sol, that would be a liability. So I do not think that any of the names of which he is going by now are the names that he wore in his past. Let's put it that way.
Got it. Okay. I just wanted to establish that, because I don't want to keep calling him Chimere if that's not his name, obviously, right? Like, so Chimere is just a fumbling idiot persona, drunk guy persona that he came up with.
Yes.
It's not a real character.
Yes. That we may refer to him as Chimere.
Right.
Alternately. You might have noticed we're switching between like 4 different ways of referring to this character.
Well, because I think officially he's only referred to as
he's the stranger
Chimere and the master, because
he's
they call him that earlier on. But now
he's May's master. Right. He's referred to as master in the context of he is May's master. The official name for this character is the stranger. Chimere is a persona. The fandom refers to him as Darth Teeth, which I love, and so I keep referring to him as Darth Teeth. But his official name, if you want to be technically correct, is the stranger. Also, with regards to this section about names and this particular character, I just need to go on the record. If you don't listen to our social things, I've mentioned it once before. I write gay crime thrillers, and I do want to be 100% clear on the record. This will not make sense now, but if you're listening to this in the future, it will. I did write the 3rd book before I watched this show.
Okay.
That is all I'm going to say. I can't talk about it yet because no one has read it.
Got it.
But I promise I wrote it first and then watched the show and went, oh shit. Whoops.
Okay.
Anyway, we are going to talk now about him identifying as a Sith.
Saying the S word.
Saying the S word, which again, definitely all of these people are going to die.
Gotcha.
Because I've read Darth Bane Rule of 2. And I know what happens when a Sith identifies as a Sith in front of someone. They get fucking murdered.
I was
They
gonna
don't
say.
get to live after this.
Because it's not something you just tell people.
No. That's a thing you tell people that you are about to eviscerate. He also talks about, and this is where it gets interesting in the context of, I think a lot of people misunderstand the stranger. I think a lot of people online have romanticized his character. And I want to set the record straight a little bit about this character.
Okay.
This character talks a big game about how all he wants is freedom. He wants the freedom to be who he is. He wants to be able to do what he wants without the rules of the Jedi. What he wants is to control people. That's the part that people seem to miss. The Sith talk a big game about wanting the freedom to practice their beliefs. Their beliefs are oppressing people. They want control. The Sith fundamentally believe that through power, through exerting their will over others, through having the ability to command and force people to kneel before them whether they want to or not, that is how they gain their strength and how they gain their control and how they gain their mastery, is by the domination of others. Not in the fun, sexy way, but in the forcing other people to be subservient to them. So when Chimera talks in this scene about all I want is freedom, you want the freedom to be able to chain other people, because that is how the Sith believe they achieve their mastery of the Force. I love when Bradley sits and stares at me in silence, because that means he agrees with me and he doesn't have anything else to say to that. And we will also get more into that with it's very like the show's very gray in the last couple of episodes when it comes to this, but I just want us to keep in mind that the freedom that he's talking about is the freedom to oppress other people. We don't have a lot of time to ruminate on this though, because suddenly Yord, which using the helmet against Darth Teeth's own lightsaber to deactivate it, brilliant, incredible. And then we get the best shot of the series.
I love how Yord is fine, right? Up until the point where he realizes who the stranger is.
Yes, but before we can talk about the moment where Yord realizes who the stranger is, and it discombobulates him, the previous shot of Manny Jacinto's glorious arms had his arm... No, we're going to talk about this, and you're not cutting it out. The previous shot of Manny Jacinto's glorious arm, the arm was down. It was completely like in a straight line. This shot, where he's holding the lightsaber at Yord, the arm is up, the shoulders are expanded, the bicep is flexed. and I saw a lot of this shot in the week after this episode came out, and I loved it every time.
Are you done?
No. No, I'm not. I'm never going to be done about this shot because thank you to gay people working on this show, for existing, but also for working on the show, for knowing to put this in. Because we did need this in this moment. Horrific character who wants to brutally oppress people and sucks and is awful. And if I met him in real life, I would want to punch him in the face. However, arms.
Also, I wanted Yord and him to kiss in this episode.
Right.
In this moment.
No, because I haven't read fan fiction in a really long time. I don't have time. All of my reading time tends to go toward reading original fiction, because I kind of have to. I have to keep up on that. However, The Stranger and Yord, enemies to lovers, I see it. I see the vision.
I can see, like, I can already see, like, what it is. It's like they're fighting for like a second. Then the stranger knocks out all the other characters, so they're all unconscious for no reason. And then he pulls Yord in close. And instead of killing him, they kiss. And then they start rolling on the ground together and then doing other things.
Yes, we don't need to get into that fic, but I am almost certain that fic. In fact, I'm sort of curious. Let's find out at time of recording
how many there are.
Let's just see on AO3.
Find one. I'm sure you can.
Let me see how many fics on AO3 are tagged Yord Fandar / Chimere the Stranger. There are 18.
Oh, that's not bad.
There are 18 on Archive of Our Own with that tag.
I may or may not be looking.
I may be checking these things out
I just
later.
love how creative people can be. So I'm curious to see like if they could even make it make sense, because if it makes sense, then I support it. If it doesn't make
Can
sense,
you make it
it's one
make
of those ones.
sense?
Yeah,
Yes,
because those
that's the
is those are the
challenge. Is
ones I don't
can you
agree
make
with.
it make sense?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to super AU it, which is always interesting because I'm like, can you keep the essence of the original characters?
Yes.
Because I've read a lot of really bad fic where they're like, well, these two people are hot and I want them to kiss, but the characters are, I can't make the characters work. So I've had to fundamentally change aspects of the
Yeah,
characters in
I
order
don't
to
like
make it
that.
work. That doesn't really do it for me. I need the characters to be recognizably the same characters. This is also where I think, not to go on an extended digression that's going to be cut out of the podcast, almost certainly, but this is also where I think that fan fiction is a lot more valid of a form of writing than a lot of academics think, because it's an incredible tool for a young writer to learn how to write character really well. Because with fan fiction, you have to be able to identify the character to write more content. I think fan fiction is that, because you have to look at a character like Chimere and Yord and make this work. And you have to be able to recognize characters so that when you go to write your own character, you have those building blocks for what makes a good character, what makes a character work. Not just the surface level character aspects, but what makes a character actually tick.
Moving on from stuff that doesn't happen in this show, we need to talk about what actually happens to Yord in this show.
Yes, moving on to the show.
Yeah,
Yord
Yord,
does get violently murdered.
surprisingly violently
On
murdered.
screen. Neck snap on screen.
Was not expecting that.
The decapitation was off screen, but Yord gets his fucking neck broken on screen.
Which is
There is
wild.
no ambiguity here. This man is dead.
Yeah.
This man is extremely dead. And here's a couple of things with that I have. One is that I think this is why the Padawan was introduced in episode 1. She was supposed to be important in future seasons, that Yord's death was going to resonate
Interesting.
through her character. Because remember, Yord has a Padawan. She's not here.
And she never shows up again.
And she never shows up again. But I think that Padawan was supposed to be important because she lost her master to the stranger.
It would be an interesting storyline, right? Like, oh, someone that I cared about was killed by the stranger, and then I want revenge on him, which changes my arc of being a good person to being a bad person, kind of thing. Like that would be an interesting story.
Or she's an antagonist in the Darth Bane books.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Darth Bane again. A book series of which I don't particularly like the first one, but I really love the last two. I thought were much better. In the Darth Bane books, in Rule of Two, which is almost clearly the book that they drew the most from to write the show, there is in fact a Jedi who was a protege to a character who is killed at the end of the first book. And he becomes convinced that the Sith are out there and that they are responsible. And so he kind of goes a little insane trying to find them and like really aggressive about it, even despite the fact he's told by the Jedi not to. So I feel like that was the arc that they were setting up for Yord's Padawan.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it would be interesting. I just don't know, like, because of the alien species that they made her, I think that if they made her a bigger character later on, that's tough makeup wise to keep doing that every single time. Like also to have action sequences, you're going to run into the Ahsoka problem they had in like the first season where they weren't quite like sure how to do her makeup and let her do action sequences because, her little Montrails thing was like such a big deal. They figured it out, I think, pretty decently enough towards once we got to Ahsoka, the show. But it took years for them to figure that out. So I think that's the problem is if she were to do action sequences or something, there'd be a lot of CGI, and I don't know if that would have worked very well. Just because it's not the practical makeup that she has. It's different with someone like Jackie, who the makeup is a lot of work, but it's just makeup. Like she can still move and do a lot of stuff. It's different. You know what I mean? Those big ears.
I feel
I
like
don't
they
think work.
would have figured it out.
Yeah,
They would
I
have
don't
tried
know.
to figure it out.
But I also don't want that story. I want Yord to have his own story. I don't
Yeah, so
know
let's
why
talk
he
about that. Let's
killed.
talk about that actually, because you brought up that point and I made a note to bring this up here.
Okay.
I want to talk about the tragedy of character death.
Yes.
Yes. So the thing about character death, when it is done well, when it is done not just, casually dismissed, is that it is a tragedy. A character death should be handled in a piece of media very, very carefully to where either the death is the culmination of a character arc or, as in the case with Yord, you can have one where it's the tragedy of an unrealized character arc, wherein a character has potential and by killing them, you have eliminated the potential for any further growth or use for that character. Now, this is Star Wars. No one's ever really gone. But in a piece of media, if you're going to kill a character like this, part of the tragedy is that unresolved arc. And Yord was kind of starting to go through an arc where he was loosening up a bit when it came to Osha. And that's cut off. And I don't think that is I think that is not necessarily something that they didn't think about when they wrote this. I think that's the thing with the character, is that it is meant to be tragic. The stranger comes in here and he not only murders Yord, he murders any more chance that Yord had to grow as a character or be interacting with any of the other characters. And that sucks as a viewer, but it also has a point in the story.
Yeah, and I get the choices, right? Like, it's the same reason why at the end of Rogue One, spoiler alert, everybody dies at the end of Rogue One, right? Like, there's no need for the characters moving forward in the story. Like, we already saw the original movie. There's no need for them, right? So I get the choice to kill the characters. I don't accept the choice because I like them so much. Because I thought Jecki and Yord were, out of the rest of the cast, were some of the most interesting characters, and they had places to go. Like, I feel like Yord's character arc of being this super strict person who follows the rules to inevitably being somebody who improvises and doesn't take things as seriously would have been a really great arc. And then the opposite with Jecki, somebody who like doesn't maybe trust as much and, you know, kind of tries to follow the rules a little bit, but then like maybe becomes a little bit more of a rogue kind of rule breaker at the end as well. Like, I feel like they both have similar kind of thoughts there with, or like similar themes, but I feel like they could have gone so many places with this. Or like maybe there was a team up with Jecki and May at some point, like she has to kind of work with her to kind of get Osha back. Like, there's so many things, not trying not to go too far forward with the plot, but I just feel like there was so many things they could have done.
I think it's interesting too, though, now that you've sort of got my brain thinking, that the two named main characters who are killed in this episode, which are Jecki and Yord, both of them were characters who had relationships with Osha. And positive relationships with Osha. These are, in fact, we will find out later, the only two characters that had a positive relationship with Osha. Jecki was starting to get through to her with her speeches about accepting death and being defined by what we survive instead of loss. These are things that Osha had never heard before. And it was starting to come through to her. Her reconnection with Yord was something that was keeping her grounded. Yord was her friend. And that friendship had started to come back, particularly when Yord in episode 2 steps in to defend Osha when they find Osha over Master Torben's body. And so the removal of these two characters from the plot is a tragedy. But part of the tragedy is that they were the two characters who were starting to get through to Osha to move her in a positive direction. So the only characters that Osha is going to have left around her are May, who she has a very complicated relationship with, the stranger, who's going to pour some serious poison into her ear, and then Master Soul. And we'll fucking get to Master Soul. But that is not a healthy relationship between him and Osha. All her healthy relationships, the stranger kills in this episode. She's left purely with unhealthy relationships. Obviously, she's going to start to entertain ideas that are more radical because she now has no voices of reason around her to tell her you shouldn't be doing this.
Right. There's no one to pull her back from the edge, right? Like, theoretically, they're at this point.
Right. There's absolutely nobody. The only person at this point in the show who looks like they could do that is Soul. And we will find out Soul is so incapable of being a person that can reach out to Osha. Speaking of Soul, part of the clues that he is not going to be the type of person who's going to be able to reach out to Osha is that he straight up was about to kill Darth Teeth.
He almost did.
He almost did, and Osha stopped him.
And
if Osha had not stopped him, Soul would have murdered the stranger.
Yes, correctly so, but he should have done.
I mean, I don't think he would have been wrong to do it.
Right.
I find it interesting he was about to do that. And I also find it interesting that Osha was the one to stop him.
I don't love that she did that, but I get it. Like, obviously she stopped him because we have, 3 more episodes to go. But the other
who knows? They just murdered Jecki and Yord.
That's true.
Like, I don't know. None of these characters have plot armor. Not a single one of them. By the way, plot armor, if you hear the term plot armor, armor being thrown around online. A lot of idiots who don't know what they're talking about will use the term plot armor in order to say that a character is obviously invincible because the show just likes them. They have plot armor. That's not what plot armor means. Plot armor means that somewhere in the plot, it is established that they are alive down the line. And so literally the plot is protecting, the only thing protecting them. None of these characters have plot armor. Any one of them could die at any point, and Jackie and Ewart just did. So like Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Phantom Menace has plot armor. We know he's in A New Hope. He's obviously not going to die. None of these characters do.
So I like how Osha in this moment when she stops him and she's like, "No, don't kill him." But then she immediately goes, "Hey, look up. Like there's another way we can do this without you having to get blood on your hands or whatever." It's like, why would
I think
you make
that's
this
the core
complicated thing?
No, because that's the core thing. I think that she recognizes, because she trained as a Jedi, that Soul would be killing Darth Teeth in cold blood here.
Right, because I guess he drops his lightsaber or whatever.
And that's bad. Darth Teeth is unarmed. He is at Soul's mercy. Soul killing him would have been murder. It would not have been justice. It would have been cold-blooded murder. And Osha, I think even at this point, recognizes that that is a violation of every oath that Soul has ever sworn. Now, there's details that Osha does not know that we will get to in episode 7. I also find it interesting, Kamir's line, "If you never follow rules, then you never have to break them." Again, part of his whole thing is what the fuck are rules? There's no rules. I just do whatever I want.
Right.
Okay.
There's no rules of combat. There's no
rules of combat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who cares?
Which is a problem. We'll come back to that concept in episode 6. However, RIP to Pip for now. He does get carried away by moths.
I don't know why she's like, okay, I don't know how she came up with this plan, by the way. Also, the fact that Pip, like, you have to remove his head for him to be a flashlight, it sucks, because now it's like, well, shit, he's RIP'd because he's on the back of the stranger and the moths attack him and take him away. It's like, well, bye, Pip, you're gone forever. Like,
bye.
But does that mean she can get a new head for him theoretically? I'm just saying, like, if that's how this works, like, I don't know.
We'll find out what happens to Pip. Pip has slightly more character art in this show. But RIP to Pip temporarily. Also, LMAO at the stranger getting carried away by moths. That's so Star Wars. That's so wonderfully Star Wars.
It is so silly, but it's kind of cool. Like, I like how he's also overconfident in the fact that he's like, "Oh, I can just kill them all with my lightsaber," but then they just like kind of overpower him.
They swarm him.
Yeah,
he's alone. He's one person, and he was fine handling the Jedi, but not against the moths. My final note is that I love how it doesn't make any goddamn sense. It makes no goddamn sense. However, I do love that the minute Darth Teeth is out of the picture, the sun starts coming up. Like, it's set when he arrived, and it came up when he left.
The dawn breaks, yes.
The dawn breaks the second he's gone. Which, hey, look at that sweet visual storytelling.
I love it. I also love that Soul's like, okay, now that everything's done, I'm finally gonna tell you the thing that I've been trying to tell you this whole entire time. And then May knocks him out.
Yup.
Isn't that just plot for you? Like,
the plot is going to keep plotting.
The plot is always going to keep plotting. It's like, hey, I could end the show right here by just telling you everything, and we don't even need the next 3 episodes. I'm just going to tell you everything. Look, theoretically, Darth Teeth is dead because we don't see where he went, so we could just assume, right? Let's just
we assume he's dead,
right? And then, Soul's like, okay, I'm going to confess my sins now, and then he tells her, and then she's like, oh, that's great. And then she could, like, I don't know, something happens. But I feel like that's the end of the show right there. Section 5. As dawn breaks, Osha accuses May of selfishness and blames her for the night's bloodshed. May claims revenge for their family, but Osha disagrees. May accuses the Jedi of brainwashing Osha. She embraces her, begging Osha to choose family over the Jedi, but Osha rejects May, calling her a criminal. When Osha accuses her of following a false master, May counters Osha's misguidedness by the Jedi. They fight, and May knocks Osha unconscious. Standing over her, she cuts off some of her hair to mimic Osha's, leaving their conflict unresolved.
My number one takeaway about this sequence between May and Osha is I want to come back to the criticism of the dialogue in episode 3, in which May and Osha are having an argument about whether the Jedi are good or the Jedi are bad. This is the same argument. The difference is they were like 8 when they were
Right.
having the first argument, and now they are in their 20s.
And I also I have such a problem with this argument too because May is just not saying the critical information because they're not going to show it to us until episode 7, unfortunately. So she's leaving out information in this fight when she should have literally explained like the two things like, no, I can prove why the Jedi are bad people because XYZ. And we haven't seen it yet as an audience, so we don't know. But in this moment, if she had just told Osha the critical information, she would have essentially won the version of this fight and then been brought her to her side theoretically.
Well, the tragedy here is that May is attempting to appeal to emotion rather than logic, to where May is attempting to appeal to Osha as, please choose me, I'm your sister. Osha still thinks May murdered their entire family.
Right.
And that's what May doesn't recognize. Despite having gotten clues, Jackie says earlier in the episode that she's under arrest for the murder of her entire family.
Right.
May has it put together that Osha thinks that when she's making this argument. For whatever reason, she hasn't figured out that that's why Osha's distancing herself from May. And so it's an appeal to emotion and it doesn't work, but it is essentially the same argument that they were having, which I thought was really interesting. I also love the callback to Anakin, where May accuses the Jedi of having turned Osha against her, which is, of course, a callback to Revenge of the Sith. Also, just shout out to Amanda Stenberg for absolutely killing it in this scene, acting with themselves.
Yes, this is one of the hardest things you can possibly do.
One of the hardest things you can possibly do as an actor is playing off yourself. And Amanda acquits themselves brilliantly in this scene.
I mean, like I said, I think I said this before, I may have cut it out. The only other time I've ever seen this level of acting against yourself is The Parent Trap, where Lindsay Lohan is acting with herself.
Actually, yes. That is the only thing I can compare this to.
I can't think of any other.
They are so good.
Yeah.
They are so good at playing off themselves and also understanding both May and Osha, like, very deeply as characters. Like, just the way that they choose to act May as she's like begging her sister to choose her, and then acting Osha as Osha doesn't. And then May's like expression, like when she realizes that she's been betrayed now by Osha, and it's flawless. It's just flawless. It's incredible acting. Osha has got to be undergoing brain damage from the amount of time she's getting knocked out in this show.
I was gonna say she's been knocked out twice now in this episode alone.
Just this episode.
So I'm like, all right. I think maybe what happened was when she crashed in the ship in the first couple episodes, I think she hit her head and that unlocked the force powers back again, I guess. And then now she's like gets her head hit again. I don't know.
See, this is how the force works. The more you have brain damage, the more you are good at the force.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's apparently how it works. I also did love the "You Could Never Block" as a callback to episode 3.
Right. So you're never good at that. Section 6. The stranger escapes from the Umbramonts, retreating deeper into the jungle. Basil appears and picks up Pip off the ground. May, disguised as Osha, tends to Sol as he wakes up. When he asks about May's whereabouts, she claims May fled. They return to their starship. Basil finds his way to the ship, but seems suspicious. In the jungle, the stranger retrieves his helmet and cloak, passing the fallen Jedi. He finds the unconscious Osha and tends to her injuries.
Basil, save us. Save us, Basil. Solve this plot for us, Basil. Please, I beg you.
So I like how we were like, Pip's dead, but then we're like, just kidding.
Just kidding.
Immediately. Basil's got Pip. It's all good.
Basil's got Pip. Basil's the only character in this plot who continues to consistently make good decisions.
And he never speaks, which is the best part.
He speaks, but no one can understand.
No one can understand.
So remember, this will be important in the next episode. Yord was the only person who could understand Basil. The only one. This will be important.
I want to talk about May's disguise for a second.
Okay, when she slices her hair.
She goes up to Sol. She's in disguise as Osha. Even the way that Amandla is talking, May is not talking like Osha enough. Like the way, I don't know what it is. There's something about it where she's talking to Sol. She just gives like, no, this is clearly May. Like Sol's just very like rattled right now, so he doesn't quite realize it. But like she doesn't really do enough, I think, to like personify like Osha. It's so crazy how it's like it's still May to me. Like even though she's wearing the exact same outfit as Osha, her hair is the same cut.
It's a testament to Amanda's acting.
It's
I
so
think
good.
that you, the audience, can tell. Soul is seeing what Soul wants to see.
Right.
Soul wants to see Osha. May, we the audience know that's May, and we know it through Amanda's performance. Also, May doesn't know adult Osha that well, so it's going to be really hard to mimic her mannerisms. Now we need to talk about Kymir's final line. So,
Sure.
I thought his line was a little weird, a little odd. He's talking about how even the height of our triumph, we find the depths of our despair. Like it's some very pseudo-poetic line that really is much more verbose than it needed to be.
Yeah.
It's a very weird line. I did go looking into this line a little bit.
Okay.
Because I read a thing on the internet and I double checked it before I brought it to the show. I did actually find the primary source for this to make 100% sure that X/Twitter didn't make this up. By the way, we are no longer on X/Twitter. I have not recorded the new socials. We are on BlueSky instead. If you go to our Twitter, you will find a page directing you to our link tree and you can find our BlueSky. That said, I read this on Twitter and I did verify this. That just in case you were not 100% clear that the stranger is supposed to be a bad guy and that he sucks, this final line is kind of a nod to a conservative media commentator. He would not describe himself as conservative, but he is. Very carefully phrasing this. I think he sucks. We'll just call him conservative media commentator like we did before. And his thing is being very philosophical. He likes to give lectures. He's that kind of person. And this is a quote, a version of a quote that he has previously said. So just in case we didn't know that Kymir is supposed to be the villain, the writers of this show took a quote by a conservative media commentator and lecturer and put them in his mouth. Okay. There are, however, no politics in Star Wars.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. That is a little bit of an interesting thing about this line.
Okay. I have one little bit, I guess you'd call it trivia for this episode.
Okay. Run some overall trivia by us before we get into who wrote and directed this episode.
So the first thing is Leslie Headland claimed in interviews that both these episodes, Day and Night, were influenced by classic horror films, Aliens and Predator. And
I can tell.
I can see it.
I can tell.
I would say more so this one because it's about essentially stalking and, eliminating, right? I can definitely see this one as definitely Predator for sure. This is like the Predator taking on the different people in the jungle kind of thing. The second bit, which I think is more important, that one's more just like, this is more of a nod. This is more actual important. And people were kind of freaking out about this. But towards the end of the episode, when he sets down his helmet next to Osha, who's lying on the ground, you can briefly hear a bit of Kylo Ren's theme from The Force Awakens.
This show is going to trick a lot of people with regards to the stranger. There are a lot. Listen, I think the Reylos are perfectly valid in what they want to do. They have found a thing and they love the thing and they are going to be very passionate about thing. I love that for them and I don't want to take that away from them. The Acolyte is going to trick a lot of people who like Kylo Ren into thinking that the stranger and Kylo Ren are equivalent. I would argue they are very much not. And we will get into that in the episodes 6 and 8. But the show is very clearly trying to call forward who Kylo Ren with the character of the stranger. That much is true. They are different takes on the same type of character. However, I do think there are a lot of people who make excuses for what the stranger does, which I think is slightly less of a thing you can do than with Kylo Ren, in my opinion. Anyway, hey, Bradley, you want to talk about who wrote and directed the show?
Yes. This episode was directed by, again, Alex Garcia Lopez, who directed Day. So we've already talked about them. The writers for this episode were, again, one of the writers from Day, Cor Adana, talked about already, but we have a new writer this time. It is Cameron Squires. Do you have any information on them?
So Cameron Squires has mostly been a story editor and staff writer on various projects. Most notably, they were very heavily involved in WandaVision, having been a staff writer on the entire show with the exception of episode 9, and wrote episode 7 of WandaVision. Also wrote 2 episodes of Agatha All Along. They wrote episode 3, which I think is the wine episode.
Yes, it is.
The poison trial episode. And then Cameron Squires also wrote episode 7, Death's Hand in Mine, which is not
Mm.
only one of the best episodes of TV in all of Marvel, one of the best episodes of TV on Disney Plus. It might be one of the best episodes of television I have ever watched in my entire goddamn life. That is the Patti LuPone episode. The person who wrote Night wrote the Patti LuPone episode of Agatha All Along, which is the one of the single best pieces of narrative storytelling on TV I have seen in a self-contained episode fucking ever.
Yeah, that's not shocking to me, honestly, and I'm very happy with that because that makes so much sense.
Yes. They were also a producer on Agatha All Along and co-producer on The Acolyte. They worked on a show called Final Space, which I did have to check. Not a Disney show, so I can't give them the Disney trifecta at this time.
But after that Agatha All Along episode, I wouldn't be surprised if they got a Disney
I wouldn't be
project
surprised.
soon.
Give this person more to do.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Give this person a lot more to do because they are a phenomenal writer. Like, God, episode 7 of Agatha All Along was so fucking good. Like, I can't even. Anyway, fuck Marvel. I'm not happy with Marvel. I don't generally condone watching Marvel, but if you have the chance to watch just that episode of Agatha All Along in some capacity, not even necessarily saying to watch it on Disney Plus, but just if you have the capacity to watch that episode, I highly recommend it. All right, Bradley, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
Final thoughts are this was great action wise. It was so good. I think I'm with you on it's just the ending of the episode. Like it's two episodes that were, or it was one singular episode that was split for some reason. I mean, don't quite understand the thought process behind splitting these two episodes because if you had combined them and if they had made it work like throughout the whole thing, it would have been the Acolyte's version of that Agatha All Along episode. It would have been the singular best episode of the show because it was just such a nice like narrative, like full through episode of the day and the night. I mean, it would have just been so great, but we can only judge it the way that they presented it to us. And unfortunately, I think it does slip because it is just a pure action episode. And we have been critical of that in the past with other shows like The Mandalorian and other things where they do a completely just pure action-based episode. They're not as interesting usually. Thankfully, because this episode was the culmination of the mystery of who the master or the stranger was, it does help a little bit. And because of the shockedness of like some of the deaths in this episode, I do think it kind of redeems itself as just being an action episode. So yeah, I think overall though, it's a solid B episode. Like it is really, really good.
This is one of my favorite episodes of the show. It's just so much fun. It's the culmination of a lot of character arcs from the first 5 episodes of the show. The fight choreography is incredible. I think episode 7 is more interesting from a story and character perspective, and we'll get to that. However, this one is just enjoyable to watch. It's fun to watch. It is a fun episode to watch with my eyeballs and process with my brain. And not just because of Manny Jacinto's glorious, flexed, toned arms.
Well,
anyway, what are we talking about next week? Because it's not the Acolyte.
You're right. I was about to say, oh yeah, we're about to talk about Teach Corrupt next week. Well,
no, we're not.
If you're listening out of order and you're just listening to the Acolyte coverage, then yes,
we're about to talk about Teach Corrupt. But however, if you're listening to this show as it releases every week, the next episode will not be about the Acolyte.
Correct. Next week we're gonna take a slight pause from the Acolyte because we have to do a episode 0 for Skeleton Crew. We need to talk about it real quick because it's about to release. The first 2 episodes are going to release in the first week of December. So we're about to watch that show as well. So it's kind of nice that it's all coming together. Finally, Skeleton Crew is coming out after all this time. We were like, when is this show ever going to come out?
We're getting closer and closer to the ability to talk about a show nearer and nearer to when it is airing. Because Skeleton Crew, we are basically going to jump into right as soon as it's done.
Correct. Which is great.
And then by the time we hit Andor, we will be releasing our Andor episodes pretty close to the show releasing. So right around the time they have stopped making TV shows, we've gotten back on track with our TV shows. Which I am very excited for the post Andor season 2 back half of 2025 because it's going to be a lot of fun for us. Alrighty, well, you can watch a whole bunch of shows that Bradley is involved with on the production side on wherever you get your reality TV, be that Peacock, Bravo, or associated streaming services, including such shows as Temptation Island, Queen's Court, Married to Medicine Season 10, and The Circle Seasons 5 and 6 on Netflix.
And update, I just got a text from a friend who is in the post department for another show I was working on that they just wrapped today. So post is almost completely done.
So we'll
I'm
have a new show
thinking
to
a new
announce
thing.
soon.
Yeah, probably
Is this a new
spring it'll
thing?
come out, but who knows?
Is this a new thing or a new season of a thing we've already talked about? Can you answer that?
I feel like if I answer that, that would be
Okay.
that. So
He said pretty much knowing what it is.
yes.
So keep an eye on Bradley's continued career. Also, if any reality TV people are listening to this podcast for some reason, he is available.
Oh, that's
you can
right.
hire
Yeah,
him.
I'm not working right now, so
He's not working
if
right
you
now.
want to hire me, great. I'm definitely available. I have a lapse in my docket right now because of the holidays. So you know what? Here's the thing: Christmas isn't real. Thanksgiving isn't real. Hire me. I don't care. Honestly.
Thanksgiving is extremely real, Bradley. Look, all I'm going to say to people is you will enjoy Thanksgiving more if you stop talking to your family for the most part and move to the other side of the country from them. And then suddenly you will enjoy Thanksgiving a whole lot more. That's just all I'm saying. Not that that's what I did or anything. And my life has noticeably improved. Anyway, speaking of me, you can find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast For Light and Dice, which is set in the High Republic era, same as the Acolyte. I also, as previously mentioned in this episode, write gay thriller crime dramas set in a very hilarious setting for this particular type of story. Those are called Beach House Studios, and you can find those currently on Amazon's Kindle or Kindle Unlimited. Wider release is coming in 2025. There will be more options to purchase these books. And the new one is coming out very soon, as previously referenced earlier in this episode. So
I need to finish the second one. I've only read the first chapter. People don't realize it. It's really hard for me to read actual.
It is an
material.
Achievement that Bradley actually reads these books.
The fact that I even read the first book. First of all, I'm super supportive because I actually read a book because and I don't even like to read people.
I need y'all to understand he doesn't do this.
Because I'm supportive, you also need to be supportive. So please go to Amazon right now and download Charles's books because at least you could read the first two. And
you can read the first two.
Ahead of me, I've only read the first one and the first chapter of the
that
second one.
Is okay. I have another friend who has only read the first one. She has a copy of the second one. She just hasn't gotten to it yet. And at this point, I'm like, let me get you an advance copy of 3. Because I feel like, without getting into it too much, 1, 2, and 3 kind of form their own arc. A lot of the questions from 1 are answered in 3, and then 3, 4, and 5 are their own arc. But we can't quite get into that yet.
Yeah.
One of these days, there may be other podcasts potentially that you can listen to me on talking about this. So yes, go watch Bradley's TV shows so that he can keep getting work. Go read my book so that I can keep writing them. And listen to For Light and Dice because it's just a good show. And also, as noted in the episode, I will bring it up here. I have not re-recorded our socials yet. But we are no longer on X/Twitter because fuck Elon Musk. And also the site sucks. We have moved one of our official platforms over to BlueSky instead. You can find us on there at goldsquadrongaze. Whatever the fuck is at the end of BlueSky. All right, and Bradley, go ahead and run the socials we still have. Thank you for listening to this episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com to let us know. And you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Gold Squadron Gaze. You can also find us on YouTube at our Gold Squadron Gaze YouTube channel, where we post full episodes of this show. Finally, if you liked the show, don't forget to rate us and give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. That allows other people to find our show. As always, thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze, and we'll see you next week. Sorry, no. Fuck. That entire note, I'm just a fuck up. Delete that whole section.